Also, Jewish law called for an elaborate series of animal sacrifices at the temple. For instance, during the Feast of Tabernacles, 70 bulls were sacrificed on the temple altar. The blood and offal from the slain animals was directed down a special sewer system and moved outside the city through the dung gate. The temple remained the hub of Jewish life until time revealed how fragile Solomon's massive empire really was. When the king died in 927 BC, the kingdom again became divided into tribes. First, the 10 northern tribes broke away, forming 2 separate nations, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. 200 years later, in 722 BC, Israel was captured by the Assyrians. 100 years later, in 606 BC, the tyrannical Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar took control of Judah and the capital, Jerusalem. He became the first of several non-Jewish rulers to govern. Solomon's beautiful temple stood for nearly 400 years, until about 586 BC, when, in response to a revolt, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the city plundered and the sacred temple burned. The looting and pillaging were so complete that, except for a tiny vase now on display in the Israel Museum, none of the temple artifacts have ever surfaced. In approximately 700 BC, about 100 years before Cyrus was born, the prophet Isaiah foretold that a king named Cyrus would make it possible for the temple to be rebuilt after Nebuchadnezzar destroyed it. With the patronage of Cyrus, the temple was slated for reconstruction. The materials and workmanship never equaled the first temple built by King Solomon, but for the Jewish people, there was hope for another temple. Cyrus can best be judged as a righteous Gentile by the Jewish people. His contributions were high-minded in an era when rampage and pillage were the norms. Finally, in 536 BC, a smaller temple was started on the foundation of Solomon's temple by the Jewish leader Zerubbabel. Nearly 500 years passed before true pomp and spectacle returned to the Temple Mount. Herod the Great, an Idumean, was made king by the Romans. Herod was a descendant of Esau, the son of Isaac. Isaac also fathered Jacob. Before Herod was born, his family was forced to convert to Judaism. However, he was never accepted or respected by his Jewish subjects. The new King Herod was one of the most complex and unpredictable leaders ever to rule the Jewish state. Herod could be a generous benefactor and builder one day, and a paranoid, sadistic killer the next. He murdered his own wife, and in an effort to stop the prophesied birth of a new Jewish Messiah, he once ordered the execution of all boys under the age of 2 who were born in Bethlehem. The Roman Emperor Octavius once remarked, "It is better to be Herod's pig than his son." But his reign was a time of stability and wealth in Israel. He began financing improvements in the infrastructure of the city, building magnificent new palaces and citadels. He built the largest port in the ancient world, Caesarea, and completed an elaborate water storage system all across the nation. Perhaps remembering the financial benefits of Solomon's temple, Herod began expanding and refurbishing the old temple structure. He started the work about 20 years before the birth of Christ. The resulting temple was about twice the size of Solomon's. It required 10,000 builders. Herod tried to do everything by the book, so when it came time to build the Holy of Holies, he had 1,000 priests trained in masonry, so no unclean hands would touch the sacred walls. The construction took about 46 years to complete. At this point, the Temple Mount encompassed about 35 acres. Herod created vast porticos around the huge courtyard and linked the temple area to the city by a series of bridges and staircases. Records indicate that the new temple was opulent to the extreme. Nearly every metal fitting was plated with gold and silver. The stone exterior was a brilliant white with blue highlights that could be seen by pilgrims from distant hills. As the temple progressed, the city continued to attract people. According to some estimates, the old city population grew to more than 150,000 people. At festival time, more than 1 million people would gather within Jerusalem's walls. Many wealthy citizens began investing in elaborate mansions near the temple to rent out during festivals. Such mansions, recently excavated under Jerusalem's Jewish quarter, had elaborate tile floors, huge pillared courtyards, and beautiful ritual baths called mikvahs. People ascended to the Temple Mount by a wide staircase. Money changers would exchange foreign currency for shekels, the only money accepted in the temple. Each pilgrim was required to pay for at least one animal sacrifice. Pens of sacrificial animals were kept on the temple grounds. There were courtyards set aside for Gentiles and for women. However, both had to move around with care because if they strayed beyond their prescribed area, they could be severely punished. Gentiles were warned not to stray too close to the holy sites upon pain of death. Solomon's temple contained the Ark of the Covenant and the tablets of the law, but in Herod's day the Holy of Holies was empty. The sacred artifacts from Solomon's day disappeared after the carnage and destruction of the Babylonian invasion. Even without the Ark and other sacred items, the new temple proved to be very popular, and the pace of ritual slaughtering increased dramatically. At festival times, visitors were overwhelmed by the number of animal sacrifices performed by priests, often thousands each day. But like the earlier temple, Herod's edifice ended up as a timeless ruin on the Temple Mount. In about 69 AD, Titus, the son of Roman Emperor Vespasian, marched on Jerusalem with a 65,000-man army. He was sent to suppress a Jewish rebellion against Roman oppression, but the revolt failed miserably. After a long siege, Jerusalem fell, and Titus torched the entire city. The beautiful temple went up in flames. While the first and second temples are now rubble and ashes, the masses of pilgrims still have reason to pass through the Dung Gate on their way to the western wall. This 50-foot stone block retaining wall was once a part of the actual temple complex. Some of its stones actually date back to the time of Herod the Great. Although the prayers here often take on the form of chanting and even singing, most Jewish people prefer to call this site the Western Wall, as opposed to the Wailing Wall, as a travel writer once called it. On this holy ground, the Jewish people come to mourn the loss of their empire. They mourn the cities of David and Solomon, and the destruction of their temple on the mount just above this wall. Here they can contemplate the many hardships they have endured throughout their history, from exile to Holocaust. They can pray for the return of the glory of their ancient past. The Western Wall is treated as a synagogue. Men must cover their heads. The Torah is read aloud on Monday and Thursday mornings, and bar mitzvahs are a common sight on Saturdays. No trees can be planted in the courtyard as long as the third and final temple remains unbuilt. The wall area is divided into two sections, one for women and one for men. The ancient custom of leaving petitions inside the cracks of the wall has been renewed. It is now possible to fax your prayer to the Western Wall from anywhere in the world. Requests left between the huge Roman stones of the wall are supposed to get special attention from God. As the only part of the temple complex to survive the Roman destruction, the wall has been revered by Jewish believers for nearly 1900 years.